Welcome back. We're going to take a closer look at the Common Core Learning Standards, one of those 3 deliverables for our Race to the Top work in the 2011-12 school year. The standards were originally drafted by the Council of Chief State School Officers and the National Governors Association. Later on, New York State adopted these and also were able to modify them by about 15% by adding in some pre-kindergarten standards in most cases. The standards are research and evidence-based. They're aligned with the college and work expectations. They're rigorous and internationally benchmarked. A particular standard was included in the document only when the best available evidence indicated its mastery was essential for college and career readiness in a 21st century, globally competitive society. The standards are intended to be a living work. As new and better evidence emerges, the standards will be revised accordingly. This year, the standards for ELA/literacy and mathematics are available. In the near future, we can expect to see the standards for history and social studies and science. For the successful implementation of each set of standards, 6 shifts need to happen instructionally within each discipline. We're going to take a closer look at each of these shifts throughout the next slides. Within the area of ELA and literacy, it was very apparent through trainings this summer that these standards are meant to span all content areas. It's no longer just the ELA classroom's responsibility. When you look at Shift 1, this is geared towards that pre-K through 5 audience, asking for that balance of informational and literary texts. Students should be reading a true balance of informational and literary texts. Elementary school classrooms are therefore places where students can access the world, science, social studies, the arts, and literature through text. Shift 2 is really geared towards that 6 through 12 audience, asking content area teachers outside of the ELA classroom to emphasize literary experiences in their planning and instruction. Students are learning their domain through specific texts. When you look at Shift 3, we're asking that students start to read grade-appropriate text at a high level and that this is the center of instruction. In order to prepare students for the complexity of college and career-ready texts, each grade level requires a step of growth on this staircase. Teachers should be patient, create more time and space in the curriculum for the close and careful reading of texts. Also provide appropriate and necessary scaffolding and supports so that it's possible for all students reading these texts even if they were below grade level. Shift 4 is asking that classroom experiences stay deeply connected to the text on the page. Students should be having rich and rigorous conversations which are dependent on a common text. They should be developing habits for making evidentiary arguments both in conversation as well as in writing to assess the comprehension of the text. If you were to visit our website or also Engage New York, you'll see videos of examples of reading a text closely and examples of text that would be on the staircase of complexity for your grade level. Shift 5 in the area of literacy and ELA is asking students to write from sources. That the writing needs to emphasize the use of evidence to inform or make an argument. Rather than the personal narrative and other forms of decontextualized prompts, students need to develop skills through written arguments that respond to the ideas, events, facts, and arguments presented in the text that they read. The final shift in the literacy and ELA standards and instructional practices focuses on academic vocabulary. Students should be constantly building the vocabulary they need to access grade-level complex texts across content areas. So you might be saying, okay, that's what happens in my instruction, and how does this align with the assessments? What we see here on the right-hand side is a table that aligns the shifts that were just reviewed with how this may show up in a Common Core assessment. When we're talking about that balance of informational and literary texts and building that knowledge within the disciplines, that may show up on an assessment as the use of more nonfiction texts and authentic texts within the assessment. When we look at the complexity of those texts and the grade level reading, you're going to see that same level of complex text used within those assessments. Shifts 4 and 5, using the text within our writing and to gather evidence, you'll see both in the expectations, in the evaluation of those assessments found in the language of the rubrics, and also the prompts that are given to students. They'll be asked to use evidence from the text. And then finally, there will still be that focus of academic vocabulary within the assessments. If we look now at the math standards and the shifts found within those, the titles become a little shorter, but the descriptions become a little longer. When you looked at shift 1, it's asking teachers to focus deeply on only the concepts that are prioritized within the standards. You get to use the power of the eraser to significantly narrow and deepen the scope of how time and energy is spent in the math classroom. All students should be reaching strong foundational knowledge and deep conceptual understanding if this is done correctly. Students should be able to transfer mathematical skills and understandings across concepts and grades. This prioritized list of concepts can be found on our Race to the Top website on the subpage of Common Core. Shift 2 focuses on coherence, that each standard is not a new event, but an extension of previous learning. Curriculum design and instructional planning carefully connect the learning within and across grades so that, for example, fractions or multiplication spiral across grade levels. Students can build new understanding onto the foundations built in previous years. As this becomes embedded in our curriculum documents and instruction, teachers can count on deep conceptual understanding of core content and build on it. Shift 3 asks students to have speed and accuracy with simple calculations. Teachers should structure class time and/or homework time for students to memorize, through repetition, core functions so that they're more able to understand and manipulate more complex concepts. Be sure to visit our Race to the Top website and look at the designated fluency list on the Common Core subpage. Shift 4 for deep understanding. It's more than how to get the right answer. Students have to be able to demonstrate deep conceptual understanding of the core math concepts by applying them to new situations, as well as writing and speaking about their understanding. Shift 5, the application. Students are expected to use math and choose the appropriate concept for application, even when not prompted to do so. Teachers can help this by providing opportunities at all grade levels for students to apply math concepts in real-world situations. Teachers in content areas outside of math, particularly science, ensure that students are using math at all grade levels to make meaning of and access content. And finally, Shift 6, dual intensity. Although the title can be confusing, it's really about balance in your classroom. Having opportunities for drills and opportunities to make use of those skills through extended application. Students should be practicing and understanding. Both should be occurring with intensity. The amount of time and energy spent practicing and understanding learning environments is driven by the specific mathematical concept and therefore varies throughout the given school year. Let's look again at how these shifts may show up within assessments. When we're talking about that focus on your content priorities and building off of previous standards covered and foundational skills, you're going to see that intense focus and linking back within those assessments, asking students to rely on previous knowledge and building off of that. Students having that deep understanding, be able to apply math concepts in and out of the math classroom to new situations, to real world scenarios, will be shown through mathematical modeling within the assessments. There are lots of opportunities, both within your district, I'm sure, and also here at BOCES to expand your knowledge and work with the Common Core Learning Standards. You'll see on the screen there that there are many upcoming workshops and more to come. You can sign up for these workshops by going to wincapweb.com. Like Oprah says, when you know better, you do better.